is a big news on the Adani-Hindenburg row. Times Network accesses the Supreme Court's panel report, which says that the prima facie there has been no regulatory failure as far as the prima facie manipulation is concerned. But the Supreme Court panel report says that there has to be a coherent enforcement policy. Well, that is the big breaking news that we are getting you at this point in time, which comes in from the top court, where the Times Network has accessed the Supreme Court panel report, which says that prima facie there has been no regulatory failure, is what we are given to understand. Also, they go on to say that as far as prima facie manipulation is concerned, the Supreme Court panel report says there has to be a coherent enforcement policy. And to get us more details, I'm joined by my colleague Harish. Well, Harish, this is significant as the Times Network accesses the Supreme Court panel report. They have made it amply clear that there seems to be no prima facie regulatory failure as far as the Adani-Hindenburg case is concerned.
Yes, the Times Network is the first channel to access the separate committee, Supreme Court constituted separate committee as far as the Adani-Hindenburg row is concerned. Remember, on March 4, the Supreme Court had said constituted the committee and said that this committee should suggest ways to improve and strengthen the existing regulatory mechanism, and also significantly look into whether there was a regulatory mechanism. And this report says, in these circumstances, the committee is of the view that it would not be possible to return a finding of a regulatory failure in relation to compliance with the regulatory stipulations governing minimum public shareholder stipulation. There indeed has to be a coherent enforcement policy. But so the report calls for a coherent enforcement policy which is dealt with in the Chapter 5. And it also goes on to say that as stated earlier, the committee's remit is not to examine whether price rise was justified, whereas its remit is to ascertain if there was a regulatory failure. It is apparent that SEBI was actively engaged with developments and price movements in the market. The committee notes that all such investigations must be completed in a time-bound manner. At this stage, taking into account the explanation provided by SEBI, supported by empirical data, prima facie, it would not be possible for the committee to conclude that there has been a regulatory failure around the allegation of price manipulation. So, what is important is that in the terms of reference, the Supreme Court had asked the committee to probe whether there was a stock market manipulation, accounting fraud, breach of law, and also fraudulent transaction because there was an aid coming in from the SEBI, that is the regulatory mechanism in the country. So now this committee in a very significant report has said that as far as we are concerned, after our probe is concerned, we have not found any proof of regulatory failure. But anyways, SEBI is continuing its probe. We have to wait for the SEBI's probe. Also remember, Supreme Court had given 3 more months to the SEBI to complete its probe, and Supreme Court had very significantly told the Supreme Court appointed committee and also SEBI to find ways to in fact, review, strengthen and improve the present regulatory mechanism to save the investor interest, to protect investors from the volatility which was witnessed after the Hindenburg research report came. So, very, very big finding as far as the SAPRE committee report is concerned. It says from their limited probe, it has come to a conclusion that there has not been a regulatory failure as far as this controversy is concerned.
Well, thank you, Harish, for getting us all those details and putting things into perspective over there for our viewers. Let us also listen in to that interaction that you had with Advocate Vishal Tiwari, who is a petitioner in the case. Let's take a listen.
Advocate Vishal Tiwari, who is one of the petitioners in this Adani-Hindenburg matter in the Supreme Court. Mr. Vishal Tiwari, what exactly does the report say, the separate committee report say?
See, the conclusive finding of the committee report has said that still investigation is going on by the SEBI, and SEBI has to reach upon a final...
The report says prima facie there is no regulatory failure.
Exactly, it has not been said, but it has raised doubt. For example, if you will see para number 62, so in the report, the expert committee has said that SEBI has been suspecting 13 overseas entities of having links to the promoters of the Adani Group, and thereby suspecting that the shareholding in the listed Adani stocks in the hands of these 13 overseas entities need not qualify as public shareholding. And if this thing comes to be true, that if such holding is not public shareholding, the listed Adani companies would have violated Rule 19A of the SCRR. So there are some prima facie findings which are going against. Against means which are showing that there have been some kind of wrongdoings by the entities, by any so-and-so group. And still SEBI is investigating, and if after the conclusion of the SEBI investigation it comes clear that yes, there was some kind of violation, then definitely there will be something against the entities.